congratulate the Algoma Community Legal Clinic for taking this initiative to hold this meeting. I do have a message from Michael Mantha. He unfortunately was scheduled some weeks ago to be in Manitowoc for a meeting about their hospital. They're having some difficulties with their hospital, so he couldn't be in two places at once. So he asked me to come to represent him at this meeting. Some of you will know my background. I used to be the MPP for your area for 24 years. And I was the MPP when the system was installed in 1985. I'm a little long in the tooth. At that time, there was a threat to close the park then because of non-compliance. This is not a new problem for Shetland Park. As the park used to be called. I want to sympathize with Ms. Flanagan from Algoma Public Health. She is delivering a message which is very difficult for all of you. But I think it's really important for us all to recognize that a mobile home park is not an apartment building, where tenants in an apartment building have an investment in their furniture. But if the apartment building closes and they're evicted, all they have to do is move their furniture. A mobile home park is a very different situation. All of you have an investment in your homes, and your homes are not chattel. It's a mobile home park, but most of your homes are not mobile. Some of them may have been there 30 years. They cannot be moved. And even if they could be moved, there's nowhere to move them to. Amen. Now, if anyone's at fault in this process, it's the owner. Back in the 1980s, the owner was not in compliance. Extensions were given to that owner, and he did finally comply. And the tenants, the residents of the park, the homeowners, because that's what you are as homeowners, were not evicted from the lots they were renting. You rent lots, but you own your home. And there's nowhere else for those homes to go. Now, when I was first elected MPP back in the age of the dinosaurs, mobile home parks weren't even protected under the Landlord and Tenant Act. It was because of a bill that I introduced in the legislature that amended the Landlord and Tenant Act, that rights were given to mobile home tenants under that act. But those rights aren't much good to you if you're threatened with eviction from a park and nowhere for your home to go to. Now, I know that Algoma Public Health and the Ministry of Environment are trying to protect the health of the residents and the environment. But there are many aspects to health. Homelessness is not healthy. The owner is holding you hostage. And that's what you are. You're hostages. Now, I have a number of questions, though, about the enforcement in this whole process. I'd like to know what MOE has been doing since 2014. Why wasn't there a proper inspection after the installation that was ordered? That's 2 years before the problem that was referred to by Ms. Mundy. So while I said the owner is at fault and he is holding you hostage, there may be wider fault here. How long has this system been malfunctioning? Hasn't been malfunctioning since 2014.
Before, right?
Long time.
Well, I know it was before that, that's why the order was.
But on record.
Yes. Because if it has been, then somebody wasn't doing his or her job. And it certainly was the owner, but it also was the enforcement agencies.
He was the pre-owners.
Yes, I know. Now, as of today, I'm informed by Mike, he received a call from the owner. Crescent Engineering has informed him that the design plan will not be completed until September 15th. So the question is, can an extension be applied for and given until that date for the order? I'm not defending the owner at all. He's had time to comply, and now he's asking for yet again another extension. The question is for you people. As has been mentioned here, you could put your houses up for sale. But who the hell is going to buy them?
But can't. Really, we will not.
No, that's what I mean.
No, they can do something.
Well, why would a real estate agent take your house when they know the situation in the park? You're stuck.
All we can do is get any money from the owner for it.
So all I'm saying is, while the owner certainly appears to be negligent, the enforcement agencies have to take into account your situation. Now, this situation is complicated by the fact that it's an unorganized area. There's no municipality. But there is a Sault North plan, which is administered by the Sault North Planning Board. The Sault North Planning Board was established many years ago by the Minister of Municipal Affairs. The Minister of Northern Development Mines also has responsibility in unorganized territory. They provide grants for local services boards, or various types of services that can be provided in an organized community, like fire protection, and so on. So I'm speaking not for Mike when I say this, but for myself as a former MVP. If you people are being held hostage by the owner who is not in compliance with an order from Algoma Health, and if the Ministry of Environment did not carry out its responsibilities adequately after 2014, then in my view, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and the Minister of Northern Development and Mines have a responsibility to assist you in this crisis. Because, as I said at the beginning, homelessness is not healthy. And that's what you people face. You're stuck with an investment that, because of the current situation, has frankly become well worthless. If there's problems with the way an apartment building is being operated, if it's unsafe, and is deemed to be unsafe by the enforcement agencies, and the owner of that apartment building does not comply, and is told to shut down, The evicted tenants just have to move the furniture. And there are other apartments available in most cases, even in areas where there is a low vacancy rate. They don't face the problems you face. So the question is, can an extension be provided until September 15th? And the question was raised earlier on the floor, is if the owner of this park does not comply, what responsibility does the provincial government have to you people? Can the work be done and then a lien be put on the property? Because fines are not going to work. If this individual does not want to comply, and you start to fine him $25,000 a day, as was indicated earlier, you'll simply declare bankruptcy and close the park. So this goes beyond the good work that Algoma Health has been doing in carrying out their responsibility. There is a responsibility to the homeowners who are tenants for the rental of the lots in this park. If you're going to be put out on the street, losing the largest investment you have, then the provincial government owes you support.
I can't tell you how heartbroken we are to be meeting with you today. This is not a decision that public health has made lightly. Our obligation and responsibility to you is to protect and support. And unfortunately, given the history and our involvement in this situation, there was no other way of protecting people. And we understand how disruptive this process is. Please, I will take questions, and I'll just to get back to where we started. Last year, I'm sure many of you noticed that we had posted a notice on the mailboxes, which is our way of notifying tenants because we don't have any other means, that there was sewage across the road. So we ordered the owner to close the road. This was in the winter time, and it was all slushy. So we ordered the road closed to protect people from exposure to the sewage. At the time, there was a play structure there as well because people lived in the park. And we ordered the play structure removed so that children would be encouraged to play adjacent to the sewage. Unfortunately, the play structure was frozen to the ground, so it took a long time for them to be able to move it. However, they did block the road. They taped the area to prevent human traffic through the sewage washing across the road. And just to explain what was actually happening at the time, because I'm actually a certified inspector for septic systems under the building code, so I'm very familiar with sewage. But what happens is in the winter time, the sewage penetrates the ground and then it moves laterally. And in the soils that are in the park, it's gravelly soil. So when the sewage went down and the frost was driven into the ground under the road, the sewage had nowhere to go except up. So that's why it bubbled up at the road and washed across the road, because it had nowhere to go. In the summertime, what happens is the frost comes out of the ground, and the gravelly soil, the sewage goes down into the gravel and then can easily flow underneath the road and towards the river. Sewage always flows, liquids always flow in the direction of least resistance. So that's what was happening. We were very confident because we were notified of this problem by the Ministry of Health and Climate Change that a complaint had been received. That's when we attended, we verified, we ordered the closure of the road. Now, the Ministry of the Environment has been working with the owner since 2014 to get the problem resolved and the system repaired or replaced. And there's a long process for that. They also issued an order to the owner to have the septic system pumped out so that the sewage wouldn't be going on the ground. That was reasonable. We were very comfortable, the proper authority was involved in this, and that the sewage was being pumped out so people were not exposed to sewage. That's the health hazard here. The year goes past, and then again, we get a phone call from the Ministry of the Environment that sewage is again washing across the road in the spring of 2017, a year later. We went, we verified, and we closed the road. We ordered the owner to close the road again to protect people from exposure to sewage. Now when sewage is washing across the road, people have to walk to the mailbox, they're driving, you walk your pets, so people get it on their cars, which spreads it through the car, they get it on their boots and their shoes, and so they can bring it into their home, increasing the risk and the exposure to the people. And everyone knows that sewage has E. coli in it. E. coli, it's like 9 little germs of E. coli can kill a child. We all know about Walkerton. We take sewage very seriously. That's why there's so many laws about how to deal with it and dispose of it to protect people and animals. We were very comfortable that the ministry was on this situation. Unfortunately, it became aware to us that the owner was not following the orders that had been issued by the Ministry of the Environment. There was not consistent timelines. They were not meeting the deadlines, and they made requests to extend the deadlines so that they could do these other parts of the process to replace the septic system. Those extensions were granted, and yet those deadlines again were not met. So we have a series of orders that were not complied with. We have a series of extensions that were granted, and yet they didn't result in the actions that were necessary. Plus, we also learned from the owner's own engineering reports that the septic system had failed, was not operating as designed, and that there was a lot more sewage going out than that was being pumped out as required every week, which was not complied with. We saw a situation where people were at risk of exposure to disease causing organisms. We had to take action, seeing the pattern of behavior that was not resulting in the actions that were necessary to protect his customers, the occupants of the park. We know today, for the way we live, we need electricity, we need safe water, we need sewage disposal, and we need garbage disposal. Those things are necessary for the way we live today. Unfortunately, the owner was not providing the service to his customers that was necessary and required by law. He was given ample opportunity to get a plan of action in place and to make it happen. And we had to act on behalf of the people who were being exposed. That's our job, to protect people. And the only way we could see that happening, given the history and given everything that we've seen, is to stop the sewage. Now, pumping out the sewage doesn't even stop the sewage because it was only one day. The other 6 days, sewage was going into the ground and into the river. So that wasn't protective enough. And stopping the sewage means that we can't be generating sewage because the owner was not fulfilling his contract to his customers, the residents, of providing that service. We couldn't allow that to continue because it's a health hazard. We don't want people to get sick. We certainly don't want people to die. That's not who we are and what we do. So the action that we took was the only one that we had available to us. We're in unorganized territory. There aren't supports that are in place there. We did the best that we could to protect people from the health hazard. So the order was issued to the owner. It's the owner provide safe water, to provide other services that we expect. The owner's responsibility, and he did not fulfill that responsibility. The order to close the park was a heartbreaking decision, but we did not see another way to protect the people and to do our obligation, responsibility to
We'll have
protect the
time for the
people.
questions. I'm going to come around with a microphone so everyone can ask their questions. So if you would please let me finish, and then I'll come around.
So here we are, and unfortunately, I've seen some of the information that has been distributed to people, and I can understand how people are confused and have been hopeful along the way. We have made every effort right since this started in posting at the mailboxes and in letting people know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And every time there was a new development, we posted it, and a couple of occasions we went door to door. We weren't even clear that after we issued the order that he would actually tell the residents of the park what was going on. We took that initiative because it's only fair. This is unfair enough. And to be blindsided by information that wasn't shared with you would have been even worse. And we took as much effort as we could to get the information out to people. Please, I'm here to answer questions, and we take this very seriously. Do you have a question?
My name's Jeff Good. I'm one of the owners in the park. And I want to make absolutely clear that I understand how you're using blackmail on all of us owners to try and force the owner to do what he's supposed to be doing. And I understand that he's starting to do it, but maybe he's doing it very late. The fact of the matter is, that I have upwards of $100,000 invested in my home. I have no intention whatsoever of leaving, and you're going to have to bring in the police and the army to get rid of us, and there's a bunch of other people here who feel the same way. So it seems to me that regardless of all the things that have gone on in the past, we now have a situation where we have to do something right now. I understand the owner is currently doing the water testing that he's been asked to do, and he is supposed to be doing or he has done the engineering work to replace the leaching pad in the sewage system. The thing is, we are not moving, and there has to be a way around this deadlock.
I appreciate your comments and your passion for this. It does not go unnoticed, and it is perfectly justified. I would have the same feelings. However, the order is to the owner. It's not to the residents of the park. The owner's responsibility has been all along. Whether they have provided you with accurate information, I can confirm today. I'm looking at this notice. I don't know, do you recognize this notice? No. Okay. In reading this, I just got this yesterday, and I looked at the four parties named in this, APH, Ministry of the Environment, and Mike Mantha, and I was not aware of any of this. This is all, I don't know where this came from, but this does not represent anything that is actually happening. I phoned the Ministry of the Environment just in case I'm out of the loop, but we've worked very closely with the Ministry of the Environment the entire time. I phoned Mike Mantha. He had no idea where this came from. So, unfortunately, the information that is being shared is not accurate to what is actually happening. I'm not aware of the process being complete for the application of the septic system. That has been incomplete. And normally, you would hire an engineer because they're familiar with the MOE processes and all the tests that are required and all of the hoops that you have to jump through, and you say, make this so. that has not been the case here. It's been a little bit that's been piecemeal, that has not been holistic, and has not been following the process. There has been ample opportunity since 2014. Okay, this is not new.
I understand
It's
that.
urgent
I
now,
understand there have been
but
all
it's
sorts
been
of-
incomplete and a non-committed process, and it hasn't been in compliance.
But the point is,
The order is to the owner of the park. It's his responsibility to comply with the order, to close the park.
and we're not moving. We're not moving.
Okay.
And if you're charging him $25,000 a day, I would assume he's probably going to go bankrupt fairly rapidly. Then what happens?
Okay, and this, whether or not the fine is levied or not, okay, let's follow down that path. There are people who are not paying their rent, and that's neither here nor there to me. However, I look at how the commitment to the residents and to his small business has not been consistent. He has not invested in his business as has been ordered and required by the legislation. So we are concerned for the residents in the park that he would just walk away and not provide water, and not provide sewer, and not provide electricity. And these things are essential to normal life. Now, our concern was that this would happen in the middle of winter. That is a totally different risk factor to people to be displaced in the cold of winter, and for the water lines to freeze, sewage across the road. What do you do then? And that's in the absence of declaring bankruptcy and walking away from the property.
That
The
was when
residents
there was
are
no
still,
pumping being done.
the residents may still be at risk, even though you may stay, because if those systems start to get shut down for whatever reason, you are still at risk. And
I'm considerably more at risk at the moment. I'm going to be out $100,000 and have absolutely nowhere to go. I can't sell my house, which is the only way I could move. So you guys, I mean, for whatever
the owner
reason,
of the park, the
are
owner of the
holding
park
me for
has
ransom.
not been fair to you and has not provided the service that you're paying for and that he's required to by law.
So how come everyone isn't working with him to get this septic system fixed?
It's not the government's responsibility to provide him with a septic system. And the normal life cycle of a septic system, whether it's your private residence or an engineered system, is 25 to 30 years. The system that's existing, that's currently at the park, was installed in the mid-80s. So here we are, bang on 30 years. This
No
is the
septic
time.
system lasts forever, I know that.
Exactly, so we're right on time for that system to be replaced. When you're buying a property, your lawyer does a file search, you take a water sample, you have the property inspected. I don't know that any of those things happened. However, we are left in a situation 3 years after the property ownership changed where the system is discharging sewage to the ground in the winter and to the river. And I just want to explain a little bit, because some people are saying, okay, why can't we just change the bed? All right, there's two ways a septic system works, okay? The normal household way with a septic tank and a tile field. The septic tank has a baffle in the middle, all the solids settle to the bottom, and a juicy scum layer forms on the top of the liquid in the tank. And that creates anaerobic conditions in the liquid. And then the germs eat each other. And so it's anaerobic digestion in the septic tank. So when you flush the toilet, it gets digested and 5 gallons goes out into the bed. In the septic leaching bed, the liquid percolates through the soil. There's oxygen in the soil, and those organisms further eat the sewage. So anaerobic digestion and then aerobic digestion in the bed. That's a normal simple septic system. The system that was installed in the mid-80s at the park was the exact opposite. It was an anaerobic digester system, which means that the tanks had bubblers and blowers in it. So right in the tank, the sewage was actively, aerobically digesting the waste. So by the time it got into the pump chamber pushed it under force into the bed. 3 different beds, and it would percolate in one bed and then stop. And then get sent to the second bed and then stop, so that the soil could rest. What's actually happening now to the sewage in the park is it goes into basically a Tupperware container with a lid. So the sewage goes in, there's no anaerobic digestion, there's no aerobic digestion, it's just a pond of sewage. When it gets to a certain level, the sewage tips to go to the easiest point of access, which is to one part of the bed that is still functional. But it's not even functional, basically it's a seepage point. So the raw, untreated sewage from the tank is seeping out through the connected part of the bed.
Even though it's being pumped weekly.
No, not all of the sewage is being removed at the time of pumping.
It's only taken 1 or 2.
Loads. And the engineer's report indicates 60,000 liters per day. And if they're only taking 48,000 liters one day a week, where's the rest of that going? So what's happening is that it's seeping out, totally untreated, not anaerobically or aerobically. It's seeping out in the winter, it comes to the ground surface, and in the summertime, it seeps untreated into the river. And so
the
everyone...
system needs to be revamped.
It cannot be repaired, it has to be completely replaced. Now, unfortunately, if you look at today, you know how our standards get better and better as we learn and know better? The standards of 1980s are not the standards of today. And so that's why we need all these studies. And the specialness of Root River is that it's completely surrounded by the river, of River Valley Park, is it's completely surrounded by the river. So the sewage is always going into the river, so we need it to be as clean as possible before it gets there. So that's the extra study that has to be done by the Ministry of the Environment. But right now, it's going into the river. Anyone who is downstream, it doesn't realize that they are exposed to an endless, ongoing, constant exposure of E. coli and everything else that's in sewage.
Do you have any studies that show that that's actually in the downstream portion of the river?
A study is not necessary for the simple fact that if you look into an outhouse, what would you expect to be in there?
I'm sorry?
If you looked into the hole of an outhouse, what would you expect to be in there?
Oh, I expect.
Exactly. So you don't need to prove the obvious. The sewage is not bubbling on top of the ground and creating waves that is washing over your lawns.
But it's diluting into the river, and therefore there's going to be an increase in the E. coli load in the river over and above what's coming down from above. And there's sure plenty of that.
We're way beyond solving the solution of pollution with dilution, okay? We don't do that anymore. So the sewage that is going into the river is a constant seeping slug of sewage that is continuing down, and every person who is exposed to it in the river, whether they're fishing, whether they're rock jumping, looking for frogs, swimming, I don't know if anyone swims in the river, but then it should not be there because we know sewage is dangerous. That's why we have such good laws of how it's to be treated.
Okay, so why cannot you allow the owner fix the system the way it's supposed to be fixed.
For the last year, given the information and the involvement with the Ministry of the Environment, we believe that there was a process that he was following. He had more than a year to implement, to do the studies, to submit the applications, and the shovel should have been in ground this year. However, that was not the case. And every opportunity that the owner was given by the Ministry of the Environment for extensions, for deadlines, came to nothing. Public health, we know there's a health hazard there. We now know that the owner had no commitment or had no action to abate that health hazard. We cannot permit the health hazard to continue now that we know. We need to protect people, and that's why we have to take action now.
So what happens to us? We're all out $100,000.
I'm just going to intervene here because there's several others who
Yeah.
have questions.
Go ahead.
So we want to make sure that everyone has the right to speak and ask a question. You know, we will be available at the clinic to assist you at the very end after the break to talk about next steps and what needs to be done and that sort of thing. Some of the questions that are going to Kara, really, you can ask us later as to what your next steps are and, you know, legally what can be done and things like that. Okay, so you have a question?
Yeah. My question is, why did you start defying the owner instead of threatening us to become owners?
Oh, okay. The fine, we're not involved in that at all. The Ministry of the Environment, for the non-compliances with the orders that have been issued and the deadlines, that's already gone to their compliance branch, and that's they're going to be following up legally with that. That has nothing to do with public health. Our order was to abate the health hazard, and the fine that you're referring to would be now, if there's non-compliance with our order, the owner is subject to a fine of up to $25,000 a day. We haven't reached that threshold yet because it's August 31st.
So there's no Ministry of Environment representative here for us to be able to ask them questions.
They weren't able to attend tonight.
So they would be, I would be asking them also why not charge, do the work, and then put a lien on property or charge the owner afterward, so we don't become owners. That would be for the Ministry of Environment. Okay. Because that would be the proper thing to do instead of having 35 people or homeowners, families, become homeless. Why not just do the work, put a lien on the property, or charge the owner? That's not your answer to the ministry, right?
I can't speak to that.
Okay, that's okay. Also, you said that Preston's report, so it was his responsibility for the reports. So you're saying that his report, you just said that Preston's report didn't have the proper information, so you're saying that it was Crescent?
No, I'm not. When I was referring to the report, I was referring to the report that the owner commissioned and the engineer indicated that the septic system had failed and was no longer operating
That's
as
what I
designed.
thought.
The application process, the application that was submitted by the owner to the Ministry of the Environment was incomplete and did not have all the
Right, you said normally they would hire an engineer, and the engineer didn't file those proper forms, so really it comes back to Crescent.
I can't speak to what the ministry, however, it would make sense to me that if you hired an engineer to do the process, they would be responsible for all of the steps. But if you only hired an engineer for one part and you did the rest yourself, I don't
We
know.
hired him for an environmental assessment. Then when I was at the meeting with the Ministry of
I
Environment,
can't speak to that.
okay, well, I'm letting you know that this is what happened. When I was at the meeting with the Ministry of Environment and Crescent, we were asked for a water assessment. Then after that water assessment, that's not what they wanted. They wanted a similar capacity study. So it was totally different than what they've been putting out and asking for. And I understand I will have to ask the ministry because that's not has to be with the Algoma Public Health. I also know that he did a dye test, and that dye test came back negative.
Oh, okay, I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, please.
Okay, Yes, when we first got the phone call about the sewage going across the road, and this was in spring 2016, I thought, great, I inspect septic systems, and I have a dye that I thought, okay, let's throw the dye in and have it come up on the road. Well, so I took the little bottle that I had and dumped it in, and of course, it would not show up because it was an invalid test. The tablets that I have are for a 4,500 liter septic tank. They're not for a 90,000 liter tank.
So did you redo it?
So, oh, well, no, because that wasn't the appropriate test for that problem. And it was obvious what was happening, that the sewage was moving laterally through through the ground and then came up because of the frost in the ground.
So there is not a dye test to do something of that capacity?
The dye test is not necessary.
Is it something else?
Is
Is there tests done? Did you do tests? Did you test the
I-
water to see that you have your proof that there's E. coli and there's everything else going in the river? Where's your proof?
The proof is the sewage system is not working. The sewage is going somewhere, and water always flows in the direction of least resistance, which in this case would be the lower elevation of the river. So it's always flowing towards the river.
Also, in May of 2014, did you inspect the system?
No.
Okay, so it was Cure Fry and another Emily, because in 2014 it was leaking,
That's right.
right? The septic system was supposed to be replaced like for like. That's why they didn't have to do any applications or anything like that. It was supposed to be like for like. It was not done like for like. It was not re-inspected, which I believe is not the Ministry of Environment's policy protocol. So they took the Myers word for it. They took the Myers word for it, and they took the engineer Fecto's word for it, with no documentation on file that it was done. No re-inspection. They put in smaller pipes. Had it been re-inspected, you would have known that instead of putting in big pipes, like they didn't set it up to fail.
Like for like means that you put a 2-inch pressure line, which was originally installed in 1985. That is like for like. So if that's what they did, they installed the like for like. They did install the smaller pipes, like you said.
Smaller than what was like for like.
Like for like was the 2-inch pressure mains that was originally
They put in
approved.
3/4 inch.
Okay, well, like for like, that's still a pressurized system. It wasn't operating as a pressurized system at that time.
In May of 2014, it wasn't operating. Is that what I just heard?
No, I don't know. The owner was ordered to close the park, so everything, the owner was supposed to make this happen. We are not making this happen. The owner, okay, thank you. We haven't had any request for an extension. And certainly to even consider that, we would have to have the health hazard controlled. I can't speak to what the owner is planning to do. And I'm not coming up to your doorway to drag you out, okay? However, I need people to be aware that if there is a collapse of services, which the owner has been ordered to provide until the park closes and is vacated, that in the absence of services, you would have to leave for your own safety.
What is the...
I can't speak. I have nothing to work with. We have tried. I was actually really nervous that when we issued the order, that none of the residents of the park would be told at all about the order.
I didn't know until you knocked on our door.
Exactly, and that's why, after we issued the order, we went door to door. It was the owner's responsibility to notify the tenants and to take action. I didn't know that action was going to happen. We didn't know if the owners would hear at all. So we felt it's important for the occupants of the park to know what was going on, and that's why we posted at the mailboxes, and that's why we went door to door to make sure that everyone had an idea of what was going on.
So August 31st, things are being shut down?
On August 31st, the owner is expected to comply with the order to close the park.
I guess we're all gonna be digging privies. Because we're not moving.
And I'd like to just mention, when we first got the notice from the health unit that it's being closed, shortly after we got that notice, we got our first notice from the landlord, right at the top, you are not being evicted. Where are we?
But that's what we don't understand.
We're not being evicted.
And please, I appreciate the confusion and the little bits of hope that have been spread in the communication that has been provided to you from the owner that is not consistent with the Ministry of the Environment involvement and the Algoma Public Health.
Then what happens?
Actually, I think this has been addressed several times. Nothing is going to happen to you. The order, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the order is against the landlord. Yeah, and then we've already discussed this. We certainly heard from Bud Wildman that this is probably not the best way to proceed by finding him, but at any rate, that's the answer.
So we stay where we are and wait to see what happens.
Well, I think it goes without saying, everyone here hopes that this situation will be resolved. It's in the landlord's ballpark. If he moves forward and gets this work done, Bud has made certainly the comment that if he actually is getting things underway now, that an extension should be considered, and also the culpability of the ministry in terms of their process and how fast they move. But the best thing is if it gets resolved. We've tried to put together information today, I guess for the worst case scenario. So we've invited people from the community so that you know what's available if things go wrong.